Hello everybody, Caliber Whips here, and today this is a complete tutorial on how to build a 4-foot long paracord bullwhip the fastest, cheapest, easiest way. Over the course of making whips, I've seen a lot of tutorials on the internet on how to build whips, and you're saying, well, how's this one any different? Well, unlike the other ones kind of give vague directions because they're usually the tutorials are done by people who aren't whip makers. Most of them. A few of them are done by whip makers, but they're very long and they require a lot of materials. This, on the other hand, me being a professional whip maker, go over the details and what beginners may make mistakes on. And just overall, since I know the mechanics of how whips work, the ins and outs of a whip, this is probably the fastest, cheapest, easiest way to build a paracord bullwhip. Mostly because all you need is parachute cord and 3 other materials. This is made up of 4 different materials. Well, technically 5 if you count the Kevlar cracker. But only 4. Electrical tape, paracord of course, a steel nail, and some BBs. That's it. So if you guys have that and just a few basic tools, you'll be able to put together a very, very good paracord bullwhip. It's also very loud too. A lot of people say, well, I want a loud whip. Well, since this whip is a bit shorter, it's not as loud, but there's a lot of BBs in here, a lot of weight to give it plenty of inertia and plenty of energy just to get it to really crack loud. So I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial, and let's get started. Alright, well, let's get into some of the materials and tools you're going to need to build this whip. For starters, you're going to need an 8-inch nail. You can get this at Home Depot, or I don't know where else you can get it. I get mine at Home Depot. So, an 8-inch nail, you're going to need parachute cord. Lots of it. Around 130 feet to be precise. They sell it in 100 to 50 foot little spools, so get 150 feet. Alright, the next thing you're going to need is electrical tape. Oh yeah, I forgot. Making electrical tape whips, or putting electrical tape in your whip, is a crime against whip making. But since we're not selling this whip, I think it'd be okay for this time. We're making it for ourselves, right? It's like filming a movie. As long as you don't sell it, it's okay. At least I think. Alright, and then the last thing you're going to need is BBs. Not a whole lot, just some copper-plated BBs. I think the copper-plated BBs are a little bit heavier than the zinc-plated, but anywho, that's pretty much it. The tools you're going to need, as far as the tools are concerned, you're going to need scissors, super glue, a lighter, a pair of pliers, a tape measure, of course, and a vise. You're probably thinking, well, do I need a vise? And the answer is yes, you do need a vise. Otherwise, whip making is going to be a nightmare. You have to have a vise of some sort. I got this for 20 bucks, and oh my goodness, I would have paid 50. No, I'm just kidding. 20 bucks is about the max I would have spent on a vise. But this is the best vise I've ever had. It's the only vise I've ever had. But it works so well with the purposes that I'm going to use it for. It has these pipe grips, supposedly. As far as pipe gripping is a joke. But for holding a steel nail, yeah, that works out completely fine down here. Because this right here will slip up and down. This little grip right here holds the nail just fine. So that's pretty much it. So let's get started. Alright, so what I've done here is I've filled a piece of parachute cord up with BBs. I've cut a 1.5 foot strand of parachute cord and I filled it up with BBs. And it shrinks when you do that. I didn't know that, so be sure to account for the shrinkage here. So what we're going to want is about 13 inches here of BBs, not parachute cord. From here to here, this is BBs. So you want about 13 to a foot. So there you go. That's what you guys have to have. And the other strand that I cut, you're going to need 2 strands, and then that's it. Let me get the other strand here. You're going to want another strand that's like 3 times as long. Let me measure it. So we have 1, 2.5. So you're going to want a fill a piece of parachute cord with 1 foot of BBs and 2.5 feet. Okay, so don't cut a piece of parachute cord 2.5 feet. Fill it with BBs that measure up to 2.5 feet. So I would cut a piece of parachute cord maybe 3.5 feet long, and then fill it up with 2.5 feet of BBs. So there you guys go, and you're going to want to cut another piece of parachute cord that is 4.5 feet. This is going to be normal parachute cord. This has no BBs in it. And that's it for the core. Alright, time to make the core. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our BBs. Now I've left a little flap here of extra parachute cord, so it's not just BB strands. So we have a little teeny flap here of empty parachute cord, and what we're going to do is glue that to the nail. And you're probably thinking, well, won't the glue come off? And won't the nail separate from the little strands? And the answer is no, it shouldn't, because we're taping it with electrical tape. We're going to put a bunch of electrical tape on it. And like I said before, as long as we don't sell this whip, we should be good with electrical tape. Alright, you guys are making a whip for the first time. If you're a professional whip maker and you're watching this, and you use electrical tape in your whips, shame on you. I do not use it, in case you guys were thinking that. I do not use electrical tape in my whips. I did when I first started. That's why I have all this extra electrical tape lying around. But as far as beginners are concerned, electrical tape is a very useful tape. It's great for binding, but professional whips, it is not a good binding material. Alright, so we have 2 strands on. Make sure it doesn't slip off, otherwise you'll get glue everywhere. We're going to put the last strand on. Get our glue here. Apply that on there. Nice. Don't put too much on there, otherwise it won't dry and it'll just slip and slide off. Alright, there we go. So, put the cap on the glue so it doesn't spill. I've spilt super glue, and that is not fun to clean up. Okay, so just opened up this roll. Let me find there it is. What in the... Okay, there we go. Now what we're going to do is just wrap it up very, very tightly. And we're pretty much going to... All you need is 1 roll of electrical tape, but I think you're going to use up all of it. We're going to go down. We're going to go down the nail and then up, just to give the parachute cord something to grip onto when we go to put it on. So we're going down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this whole thing in parachute with... We're going to wrap the whole parachute core with electrical tape until we get to the very end. So where the last BB strand meets the rest of the thing, we're going to end it there. Alright, just finished the core. I gave it a good wrapping of electrical tape. I put some extra wrapping here to reinforce this area where the handle ends and the whip begins, so you know the nail doesn't spike through the whip. But now those strands will never come off because they're just mummified in this electrical tape. So there we go. So let's get started on the first belly. Alright, so I've went ahead and cut the 4 strands for the first belly, and the strand lengths are 11 feet, 11 feet, 9 feet, and 7 feet. Alright, so for the 9-foot strand and the 7-foot strand, what you're going to want to do is actually off-center the strands about 6 inches. So one side is going to be 6 inches longer than the other side. And then you find the center. Okay, so we have all the centers here. We can take our glue. Just going to put a little bit of super glue on the nail and then set our strands on it. So when we go to plate, the strands won't slip and slide, and it won't lose our place as the center. So I'll get back with you guys when the glue's dried. Okay, so the strands have so the glue is finished drying and we're ready to plate. So basically what we're going to do is take this and we're going to go under 2 over 2, and we're going to complete this pattern and keep on plating this pattern. So one strand is a different color, so it's a bit easier for you guys to see, but just under 2 over 2, and I'm just going to keep on doing that. Okay, I just finished plating the whole top of the handle here, well, about half of the handle, and only took a couple of minutes, but I just want to quickly show you guys when you guys go to plate, make sure you plate very tightly and very evenly, okay? Because if you notice how even everything is and how it's not loose, if you go back to one of my videos that I did, 5 ways to make your whips look more professional, I talk about plating. That's the first thing I bring up. You want to make sure the plating is even and it's not loose, because if it is, it's going to shorten the strands, actually making your whip shorter than it should be. So making sure you pull all the strands every time you go onto the next strand, pulling it tight, not super tight, but pulling it tight, and then making sure it's all evenly spaced. If at any point, you know, if you have a strand like this, all of a sudden the strands start to separate or the strands start looking different, that means you did something wrong. So just wanted to point that out, and it's very, very paramount that you guys keep that in mind. Alright, moving on. Alright, so once you reach the point where the strands get super short, what you're basically going to want to do is just abandon it. So just pretend it's not even there. Alright, so what I do here, when you have this little extra flap strand here, I'm just going to cut it. Cut it right off. Boop, just like that. And now, to make sure it doesn't slip up through the plating, I'm going to take my lighter and just nuke it. Or roast it. And press that into the foundation, or the plating. And there we go. That strand is out of the way and out of our hair. And you're going to do this with every strand that has been abandoned. Alright, well, once you get to the last little bit of your 4 strands, take your electrical tape and just gently go over, well, not gently, go over the top just once so all the strands are held in place. And then what you're going to want to do now is you're going to want to taper them. So you're going to want to cut a strand like this, like that, and like that. So when you go to bind it, it's tapered, and it allows for a more even taper when you go to put the overlay on. So we're going to wrap that up. Alright, there we go. This is wrapped up, and what we're going to do now is wrap the whole first belly in electrical tape. Alright, now that this whole belly is covered in electrical tape, what I'm going to do now is give it a quick roll with my hands, kind of like a Play-Doh snake. And what this does is it distributes the tension on the whip, making it flow better and helping it crack a bit easier. Might be a little hard to do because the core is a little uneven from the BB strings. I think that's good. Alright, this whip is ready for the overlay. Alright, so we have the strands, the gutted strands glued on. I have them cut and ready to go. So we have, the strand lengths are 19 feet, 19 feet, 14 feet, 12 feet, 10 feet, 6.5 feet. And again, you're going to want to stagger them. So except for the 19 footers, stagger the strand that's not a 19 feet. So 14, 12, 10, and 6.5, stagger those about 6 inches. But the 19 footers, leave them, find the exact center, and then glue that on. Alright, so we're going to do plating now, and it's pretty much the same as before. Under 3, over 3 for a very long time. Depending on how fast you plate, if you plate too fast and it gets sloppy, or if you're really going fast, take a break, because you kind of need to have your full focus in a way, otherwise it's going to turn out sloppy. And that's what I did the first time, and it turned out pretty sloppy. So pull the strands nice and tight, and take your time. It's not a race. Seriously, it's not. One of the things that I wanted to show you guys really fast was that it'd be a good idea when you do the overlay to make a couple of your strands different colors, just to give it a bit of variety. As you can see here, you can see the pattern really coming to life here. And if you made the whip solid black, it will hide any of your plating inaccuracies. But you know, if you're plating, actually, if the first belly you did very well on the plating, I would highly recommend doing different colored strands to kind of give the whip some appeal and some, you know, pizzazz, if you will. But yeah, you can see the pattern coming alive, and it's looking pretty good. Alright, moving on. Alright, well, once you get your strands getting short, what you're going to want to do is plate a few more. So if you look right here, the strand is about right there. So plate just a couple more strands over so you have enough tension, and then pull the strand down under. So hold these strands down while you pull him right there. Just like that. Pull everything tight, kind of give him a tug, make sure he doesn't slip up under the strands, but pull him firm, pull this guy really tight, make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Alright, there we go. So, get our scissors. Good. These scissors are really cruddy. Okay, just barely hit that with the lighter. Okay, then get your super glue. This will keep the strand from slipping up and out over time. So there we go, we got plenty of glue on there. And then just set that on there. Hold your finger there for about a second or two. Wait for the glue to kind of set up a little bit. Make sure you don't get it on your fingers. And just keep on plating. And one thing to mention too is, if you notice the whip, notice how nice and striped it is. When you drop strands one at a time instead of two at a time, this will start to actually break up. So once this starts breaking up, don't be surprised, because you're dropping one strand at a time. If you drop two strands, I believe the next strand to be dropped is this guy. We still have a ways to go on him because we staggered it. If you didn't stagger it and you made all the strands exactly at the middle and you dropped them both at the same time and did what we just did, the pattern will remain the same. But this pattern now is going to become broken up and kind of messed up as we keep on plating. And I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. Alright, I just wanted to take the time to show you guys that the pattern, as you can see here, it does break up as you drop strands, as you can see. I've plated everything correctly and the strands have been dropped, and the pattern does break. So if you drop both strands at the same time, it won't break, but if you drop one strand at a time, the pattern does alter, as you can clearly see here. So no strands were dropped in this whole sequence until boom, then the strands start dropping and then the pattern starts to shift. Alright, so so this right here is a hemostat. That's what that is. And no, that wasn't one of the tools I listed, but I use it all the time. So just it's a little clamp that holds strands down. So I'm not going to show you me tying the fall hitch because I already have a video on that. So for sake of saving time, I'm not going to include that. Me tying the fall hitch. I'm actually going to do that. Set this down. I'm going to show you guys how I quickly make a fall, and what I do is I take a 4-foot piece of gutted paracord and I tie on a super teeny lacing needle. I'm sorry, it's another tool I didn't list, but you only use it once, and you can use a normal piece of parachute cord, but for sake of ease, this really helps me out. So let me find the center. Okay, I think that's it right there. I pre-cut a little tiny notch in there. So I'm going to force that in there and then just work my way up. And what I'll do is I'll actually loop the paracord inside of itself. So it's pretty much double sheathed. As you notice, you're probably thinking, whoa, your hands are moving weird. Yeah, that's because I'm trying to get the lacing needle through. As you can see, it's already creating a noose, and I do talk briefly about that in my fall hitch video, so refer to that, about tying the fall hitch. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Alright, so the whip is finished. The whole binding of the overlay took about an hour and a half to do. I tied on the fall hitch. Looks pretty nice. And we have a nice 2-foot fall. So I'm just going to give the whip a quick roll. You already know how that works to kind of close in all the gaps and stuff like that. So I'll get back with you after it's rolled. Alright, so the whip has just been rolled, and all that's left to do is attach a cracker, and I already have a video actually on how to attach a cracker. But recently I've made these nifty Kevlar crackers made out of Kevlar. They're unbelievably easy to crack because the Kevlar just kind of gets like a fine fuzzy mesh, making the whip crack easier and actually louder, a lot louder. I'll actually put a link in the description because I actually sell these on the internet on my eBay shop. But I attach Kevlar crackers on a majority of my whips. So that's going to go on, and once I get that on, the only thing left to do is to crack it. Right, well, that's all there is to it. The fastest, cheapest, easiest way to build a paracord bullwhip. Fast as in, since it's a shorter whip, a 4.5-foot long whip, it's a lot faster to make than a 6-foot long whip. You use electrical tape, which saves up a lot of time in the binding process. And cheap, as in the nail costs about 50 cents. The roll of electrical tape costs about 80 cents. The BBs cost only a few dollars, but the paracord is what costs you the most. It costs around $12 to $15 for 150 feet of it. Easy, as in, well, the fast and cheap kind of ties into the easy. Really fast, I have to stress it again, if you guys do not make the plating tight and even, the whip will become shorter and it will become very sloppy. So make sure you pull all the strands nice and tight and you plate evenly, otherwise the whip will turn out terrible. So that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching.